It's been over 30 years since the first long-term care insurance policies were introduced. But there are still a lot of myths about them. Those myths can be dangerous and costly. Even those who are sophisticated enough to buy long-term care insurance may be unaware of the reality of what their policies cover, or don't. With us today to clear up some of these misunderstandings is Carol Ann McCormick, Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Duncaster, a community in Bloomfield. She's also a Simsbury resident. Carol Ann has worked for over 20 years nationwide in senior housing. Welcome, Carol Ann.
Thank you.
So, what's the biggest myth that you hear about long-term care insurance?
I think people think they can begin receiving benefits as soon as they need help.
And that's not true?
No, it's actually not. Some policies it might be, but typically no. Most policies have different caveats written into them in different clauses. So there may be criteria on what it is you need help with, how long you have to wait for your benefits, how long you have to have had a problem before being eligible, and what setting are you covered on under your policy and what setting actually is going to be delivering the help you need.
So it doesn't cover all costs that you need as soon as you get sick?
Well, it may not. Every policy is different. Even if people buy the same policy from the same company.
Really?
The policy benefits have been changing over the years. What's covered is getting a little bit narrower in scope. It's harder to qualify for long-term care insurance, and it's a little bit harder to tap into policies than it used to be.
So since some policies cover home care, doesn't it make sense just to use that policy and stay at home since the house is already paid for?
Some policies do cover home care. The home care benefit may not be as large as the skilled nursing benefit.
Well, it's different.
It could be. It may be the same. The other thing is home care initially can be fairly cost effective if you just need a little bit of help. If you need a couple hours a few times a week. But with home care, there are homemaker companion type services, there are home health aid services, and there are nursing services. And no person is going to be licensed or certified to do all three for you.
And did the policies cover all of those?
If you have a home care on your policy, what I'm explaining here is that there are different types of home care. Okay? So if your care at home requires companion and an aide and a nurse, you're going to be paying an awful lot for home care. Or if you just need a companion but you need it 24/7, that's going to cost a lot. If you need a part-time companion and a part-time aide, that too is going to cost a lot. So what happens is a companion can do things like keeping you company and taking you shopping, doing your laundry, maybe cleaning your house, chore type things. A companion cannot help you using the shower, getting dressed. They cannot help with the activities of daily living. So they're not insured, certified, or trained to do that. An aide, on the other hand, is certified, insured by the agency that he or she works for, and trained to do hands-on type of help with activities of daily living.
What are those activities of daily living?
Eating, using the restroom, incontinence, transferring. So things that bathing and grooming, things that we need to do just to begin our day. Okay. But an aide won't touch housekeeping or laundry or driving you around, typically. Okay. And your long-term care insurance is not going to cover you to hire Joe Schmo from down the street, because Joe Schmo is not licensed, trained, and certified. So Joe Schmo may be willing to help you with your shower and take you to the grocery store, but since he's not trained, licensed, and certified, you're not going to get a reimbursement for using him from your long-term care policy.
So how does Medicare and Medicaid fit in with all of this?
Medicare is only for short-term care after a 3-night hospitalization where you were admitted and not in for observation. It does not cover long-term. So Medicare and long-term care insurance do not have overlap.
Ah.
Okay. In fact, they don't even often meet. So some people think that they would be able to tap into Medicare and then go right from that to long-term care insurance.
Right.
But that's usually a fallacy as well.
Huh.
And Medicaid is for people who do not have the financial resources for health insurance, including long-term care insurance. So if somebody is applying for Medicaid, they're not going to have necessarily a long-term care policy. In fact, there are some caveats to that with the Connecticut Partnership for Long-Term Care, but that's a little too much to go into here. There's a lot to cover in long-term care
Yeah,
insurance.
there is. I think most people feel that as soon as they get ill, they've got long-term care insurance, it's going to take care of everything. But I think you mentioned earlier there are some restrictions on that.
Yes, not only are you restricted by what care settings did you buy a benefit for. All policies definitely have the skilled nursing care. But how much coverage did you get? Is your policy worth $150 a day? Is it worth $300 a day? And you realize that right now in 2016, the average cost for 1 day of skilled nursing in the greater Hartford region is $457 a day.
A day?
A day.
Wow.
So you really, your policy, maybe you are getting a full reimbursement for your policy of $300 a day, but if you're paying $457 a day, or even $400, that difference, is out of your own bank account. In fact, what most people don't realize is with all the policies, you pay your bill, and then you file a claim, and then your long-term care insurance provider will send you a reimbursement check. It's not like going to the doctor where you hand off your card and they bill.
It doesn't work that
It
way.
doesn't work that way.
So, long-term care insurance has been around a long time. You alluded to the fact that different policies are different. Talk a little bit about that. I mean, you'd think that after 30 years, everything would be kind of standardized.
Yes. They have become much more standardized in that they don't cover as much.
Oh.
So there used to be many different carriers for long-term care insurance, but many carriers have sold off their policies to other carriers. It's when you buy long-term care insurance 20 or 30 years ago, you might have been able to buy different menu items and you crafted your own policy.
Right.
Today, usually when you buy a policy, you're giving, here it is. This is what it covers, and this is how much you pay.
So you can't pick.
Not necessarily, right. I bought a policy a couple of years ago, and I didn't get to pick how much of an elimination period I have. I didn't get to pick what settings it would cover. I was just given two choices. Here's a policy that will last up to 3 years at this rate, or this policy that will last up to 4 years at this rate.
And those are your only two choices.
Yeah, so I was given, so I had two choices for mine.
So chances are, if you're thinking about using your long-term care insurance, it's time to use it. You're probably ill. What happens if during that illness you missed a payment? And you've been paying your insurance all these years.
Yeah, I encourage people that if they have a long-term care insurance policy to set up an automatic payment. It might not even just be ill, but if you miss a payment because you're forgetful, or for any other reason, most policies do have a grace period. But what happens if you miss a second payment or a third? Policies will cut the cord. So
Even if you paid all those years.
Even if you've paid all those years. So you really want to make sure that you stay on top of your payments. Some policies have an arrangement set up whereby you'll give them the phone number of somebody they can call if you've missed a payment. So let's say you give the number and you give your son's number. And your son is traveling, or he's on a ski slope in Tahoe, and they call him to tell him he's missed the policy, and his cell phone is in a very poor zone, and all he hears is blah, 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 blah. He doesn't know who called him, has no way of knowing, so he hits delete. So your backup warning system with Drew
So,
is gone.
and they gave the warning.
Correct. They gave their warning. So you really want to just set up an auto payment from your bank account. It's pretty easy to do.
We've talked about life plan communities. This seems like a duplication. Why would you have long-term care insurance?
Okay. Well, some life plan communities offer a life care benefit, but not all life plan communities do.
Okay.
But in general, why would somebody choose a retirement community if they had
Yes.
long-term care insurance? Well, as we were saying, if the cost of care is $457 a day and you're getting a reimbursement of $300 a day, your policy really isn't covering you in full. Or in my situation, my policy is a 3-year policy. If I need skilled nursing for 4 years, I'm a year short on that. But what happens is with a retirement community, you're doing a couple of things. For a life plan community, you're guaranteeing where you're going to get your care. Your long-term policy cannot guarantee you where you're going to get your care. So, right now, I live in a house, you live in a house. If one of us were in a car accident and we need a long-term care tomorrow, we're at the mercy of the system.
Right.
Who has an opening. However, if you're living at a life plan community and something happens, be it a car accident or a health decline, you know where you'll get your care. So hopefully you've picked that community because it has a great reputation for care. So that's one reason. The other reason, if it is a community that is a life plan community that offers a type A life care agreement, that is a type of long-term care insurance benefit, you're going to be paying a lot less than you would for long-term care in the real world. So if your policy will last for $400,000 and you're paying $457 a day, your policy will not last 4 years.
Right.
Might not last 3 years. However, if you have a policy that covers $300 a day, you might actually get a full 4 years of benefit out of it. And at the community then, thereafter, your cost for care may be less than it would be in the real world too.
So if you have long-term care insurance, it still makes sense to consider a life plan community?
Oh, yes. Yes, and when people do come to the community, if they have a policy, they will often say, should I keep it? And I say, well, yes. You've paid money into it all these years. You're going to be paying for care no matter where you get it. You may be paying less at a life plan community, maybe, if you picked a type A life plan community. But regardless, you've paid this money, it's going to be a reimbursement to you. And most communities that are life plan communities may have home care, nurses' aides, assisted living, memory care. So in addition to long-term skilled nursing care, so you may have different opportunities to utilize your policy later in life. So some people have inflation riders on their policies, and I always tell people after they move to a community, double check, find out if you're now overinsured by living in the community. If you're overinsured, you might be able to drop your inflation rider, save a little bit on your premiums for the coming years.
Because you don't need that once you move into a community?
You may or may not. That's what I said. You have to investigate it.
Okay.
Some may, some are still underinsured or fairly insured, but some end up, if they've had an inflation rider and if they've had a very robust policy to begin with, they may find they're overinsured.
Wow. So this is a pretty confusing topic.
Yes.
Where can people go for more information?
Well, we do actually have upcoming at Duncaster, we do some long-term care insurance workshops, so they may want to call and see if we have a workshop coming up. For those workshops, people have to bring their policy with them. It's hands-on in a small group setting, and you will delve through your policy and figure out, what does it really mean. If there are no workshops, I do sometimes meet with people one-on-one by appointment to go through their policy as a community service, so people may want to call me at Duncaster as well. And that is 860-380-5005.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. With us today has been Carol Ann McCormick. We thank you for joining us about this topic.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.